Welcome to the podcast. We are so excited today because we have really a social media marketing guru in the house today,
Expert
John.
in the house.
Yep. And in addition to just being so prolifically accomplished at everything digital, on brand, and social media, Chris Fox is a great person. So
really good
you're our
person.
kind of people, Chris. So welcome to the We Are for Good podcast. We're so delighted to have you here. So tell us just a little bit about your company and give us some little background on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I run my own marketing firm where I help small business owners and nonprofits build marketing plans and then coach those leaders on to execute those plans. I've done this now for just about 2 years, but really I'm standing on about 15 years of communication experience between nonprofits and small businesses myself.
That's awesome. And I think that there is no nonprofit in the history of existence that has ever not had someone in a core leadership role walk down the hall and say, we got to have a Facebook account. Somebody get that up online today. We got to have an Instagram account. Go post something. And it's really so much more of a thoughtful, intentional process if you're really trying to elevate your brand and be strategically positioned. So I think our listeners are just going to be thrilled today to talk about how to connect in a very smart way with our audience. And would love to just hear your tips about that. So
Yeah. So, I mean, I think jumping in, Chris, like what would you advise nonprofit professionals that have been handed social media reins? What do you coach them to do? Where do you even start whenever you're diving into something like that?
Oh, that's such a good question. Where do you start is where we all find ourselves at the beginning of any road to communicate, right? I mean, whether we're writing an annual appeal or we're starting the, year in review, we're getting down to the, year-end giving, we're all starting with a blank screen. And that's where I coach any of my clients or any of my friends who are doing this to really get serious about their message and develop a clear, repeatable message that they can plug into all of these communication platforms. And I think that's the genesis really of good writing for donors, good writing for clients, good writing really for even grant applications, all the stuff that we write for starts with a really clear message. What are we doing? Who are we serving? What problems are we solving for them? And what does success look like at the end of that solution?
I really like all that you just said right there, especially when you're talking about telling the story, because I think I am a very verbose person. Anyone who knows me knows this about me. I will use 100 words when 2 will do. And social media really does challenge you, whether you're trying to get in, only a certain amount of characters in your tweet, and storytelling can be very challenging on a digital platform when you are sort of limited. Can you talk a little bit about how to capture that nuance and that emotion and feeling that's kind of threaded throughout storytelling on a digital platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say that a really good hack on doing digital communication, especially for social media, is to start on Twitter, where there is a built-in character limit and you are forced to maximize every one of those characters, every one of those words. I think that if I'm ever feeling rambly that day, or I feel like, we're not really getting to the point of something, I will go to Twitter and I will craft the message I want to, send for that day in that limit, inside that, that box, and then be able to copy and paste it elsewhere. So, I mean, that's a really practical hack, but I think the real work behind this kind of messaging and storytelling is to really do it first. Do it in the beginning. One of my very favorite tools is a brand script from Donald Miller's StoryBrand. You can make one for free at mystorybrand.com, and it leads you through 7 points or 7 pieces of a framework that really end up telling a story. There's a character who has a problem, who needs a guide, who gives them a plan and calls them to action that leads to success and away from failure. And that framework is really the thing you want to go and wrestle with first. If you're a nonprofit leader, if you're a nonprofit communicator, who are our clients? Who are the heroes of this story, the characters that we're trying to serve and reach out to? Or who are our donors? Also the heroes of the story in their own ways. And then who are we as the guide? Our nonprofit, our organization, what are we doing? What problems are we solving? How are we calling people to action to fix these problems? And what does success look like? So that we can really message all day about that, but also what does failure look like? So we can remind people something's at stake. Doing that work, and it's heavy lifting, but doing it up front to constantly boil down that message to its most critical, most clear, most actionable, then turning around and plugging that into a Facebook post, an Instagram post in soundbite form is so easy because you've really done that heavy lifting up front. I would recommend that if you don't really know what you're going to say, sitting down to write a Facebook post or an Instagram post is the last thing on the list. You need to start with the message, start with a controlling idea, start with making a brand script, however you're going to approach it. But you've got to start really off of that blank page. Otherwise, you will end up with a rambling Facebook post, an Instagram post that really goes nowhere and unfortunately doesn't prompt or call anyone to do anything.
I love that you brought that up because, and I saw, congrats, you're a certified story brand guide. So I know Chris can help people step through this process. You know, at a prior organization, we did that, and it is heavy lifting. You think it's going to be simple to just sit down and say, this is who we are, but it takes a hot minute to really figure out some of those questions and sort through it. But I love that story is the driver because story is such a connecting element. And I think we've seen that to be true, and it's such a thread, you know, so I love that you use that framework and have found it to be successful with nonprofits.
You know, the only thing that I'll add there is, and it's massively successful with nonprofits. The reason I'll add this is all human beings process information through story. We understand what it means to hear about your day or hear about your life, relate to it emotionally, understand that you had a choice somewhere in a crossroads and then you made a choice. And we're hoping, right? All of us are kind of sitting on the edge of our seats, hoping this story ends in success when we're hearing it. And so since we process information in that way, naturally, it is the way that marketers can call people to action, gather them around an idea or a vision by burning the fewest mental calories for that person, right? It's the
one time in your life you don't want to burn calories.
And so we want to communicate
I get it
in that way.
I think it's so fun.
None of us want to burn calories.
So fun that you put it in that terms, because truly the authenticity in storytelling is where that connection is built, and just reminding people gently. And I feel like I need to hear this quite often, that we do need to talk about our failures, because we cannot have a beautiful Facebook page or Instagram page, you know, that is just pinging success after success, because we do have needs as nonprofits. We have deep missions that need us. And we need to be talking about the things that are not working. We need to humanize ourselves a little bit, because again, that's going to create even greater connection to us. And Chris, I hope you'll share a little bit of the story with our listeners, because I just heard it in the context of you. And it's such a powerful story about the Moore tornado. And for anyone that's listening, if you know anything about Oklahoma, it's the land run and our crazy weather. Those are about the only two things that we're about known for. Yes. And so, you know, we had a tornado in 2013, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
that's right.
EF5, which is the largest tornado you can possibly have, ripped through the city of Moore, complete and total devastation. And there's such a helpless feeling, whether you're someone in that community or you're watching the live coverage go by. And so I want you to tell everybody about this sort of Serve More and this journey that you went on digitally, and how it turned into this connection of neighbors and community and making things better and kind of getting in lockstep with people around you, because I think it's so inspiring.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. It certainly is inspiring to think back on. It was utter chaos to live through, but I think that's some of the best things, right? That turn out to be most valuable in our lives. And you're exactly right. We had a tornado tear through our town, and as a local community, a group of friends representing several churches, we wanted to do something to help. And you mentioned it, we felt helpless. It's an amazing force of nature, how much destruction can be done, by wind in such a short time. And then to be left picking up the pieces, it feels unjust that we have to pick up, one piece at a time, one shingle at a time, when in a matter of 3 minutes, whole neighborhoods were leveled. And so we wanted to do something. We wanted to really chip in. We saw our neighbors hurting. And so we just started cleaning up. And that idea right there really became a brand. We certainly didn't think of it in that way in those first few days, but we simply took to Twitter and said, hey, if anybody wants to do this with us, here's what we're feeling. We're feeling neighborly. We're feeling hurt, that there are people who need help. And what they really need is an extra set of hands. So we can do this. Let's get together and let's do this. And, those tweets absolutely went viral. They were reported on by national news. And people began, flooding into the state. Quite accidentally, we became the official volunteer response organization of the city here, just because they couldn't handle it, and we really shouldn't have, but we made it and duct taped it all together. But what started as really just this idea of neighborly response and neighborly love, turned into all the things that we know today. I mean, we wrapped a brand around it. We ran for 5-6 years doing this kind of work, not only for that tornado, but for community service to our elderly neighbors, to single moms who needed help, to our disabled neighbors, and later on tornadoes and natural gas explosions and floods and just all kinds of things. It became kind of this neighborhood community service organization. And it was really all started with that idea of telling the story of, hey, everyone knows this, what happened. Here's what we're feeling, and here's the problem we can solve. And this is our solution. So we're going to call you to action. Meet us at the community center, and let's do something about it. And that became our story of success. And we didn't know it, but we were building a brand. We were building a movement.
How many people showed up that first time?
Well, that first time after we put out the call on Twitter, we had about 100 to 200 people the day before. And we thought, okay, let's try to double that. We'll have trash bags and rakes and gloves for everyone. And 3,300 people showed up that next day. And so it was a roller coaster.
Extraordinary.
From there. We had 10,000 volunteers by the end of that Memorial Day weekend, just about 6 days after the tornado.
100 to 10,000.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not lost to me that you started off by saying, how can you succinct your message to a tweet? Like, start just looking at the Twitter box staring at you in the face. And that was a huge part of your story of realizing the power of an urgent appeal, timely messaging, clear communication that rallies thousands of people. That's probably the best case study I can imagine.
Absolutely.
Well, and we weren't experts at it by any means, but I think that the lesson I took away from that is, and I carry it with me every single day when I sit down to write content for clients or coach them, is what do you really need to say? And I think that's a really good question as a content marketer, and I'm asking myself, but as nonprofit directors, you're getting up to give a keynote or you're writing a grant application, you're going to send an email appeal. What do we really need to say? And I think that's kind of where we can start that boiling down process, because the reality is we're all busy, all of us all over the planet. Hardly anyone reads anything anymore. People scan things. And so building it for scanning, right? Building it for
mobile,
actionable language, building it for mobile. All of these are really, they are the result of what do we really need to say? And it's only this. I know I'd like to say this, but what do I really need to say? And start there.
That's such a great story. And the weird connection that we discussed as a team was I was actually a volunteer during that time too, because Public Relations Society of America put out a plea to all public relations professionals, come down. We have the BBC here. We have CNN. We don't have enough people writing press releases. We need people talking to the media. Come down and we'll find a slot to fill you in. And so I kind of showed up down, and nothing can prepare you for being at the epicenter of a natural disaster. And it's something that's so foreign. It seems like something that would happen in a third world country, and it's sort of just kind of down the street. And so none of the markers are there, visual markers. And it was just extraordinary to go around and be sort of on feet on the street, because you're right, it's sort of an all hands on deck kind of mentality, and we're handing out these more stronger together, more something like that, and there's the founder of Chick-fil-A running the drive-through, in Moore, Oklahoma, and that just speaks to the human compassion component, and that's really what I think you're talking about, even with your digital brand, is how do we leverage that human element, that very clear, concise communication, and how do we spread it and for good, and that's what we love. So wonderful.
Well, and I think that the easy way for lots of listeners to dismiss this right now is to say, well, yeah, but they had a tornado and national news was on the ground and everyone was paying attention. Here's my encouragement. We needed 10,000 people that first week. And so that's what we got. But the reality is, you and your nonprofit, every one of us, every day in our roles, there are people out there who are our people. They are ready to connect with us. They are ready to be called to action. And the whole goal of marketing is getting the awareness and getting the message to those people. And so I often tell people, don't be discouraged by the fact that if you're in a metropolitan area, like let's take Oklahoma City, if you're in a metro of around 600,000 people, if you're a small business, if you're a nonprofit, know how many people you're really needing to reach, right? So the encouragement here is you couldn't possibly onboard, 10,000 new board members. You couldn't possibly bring in 10,000 new clients this week. You probably, even though we'd love to have 10,000 new donors, couldn't thank 10,000 new donors this week. And so if we really look at it and say, this week, this month, this year, I want to reach this many people, and those are my people. Then you look at your wider audience, the people around you, right? In our case, that was, yes, Oklahoma City, of which Moore is a suburb, the state of Oklahoma, but then regionally and nationally. Look at all of the people. If you think maybe there are 400 million people, right, that could have easily, heard our message that day, there were only 10,000 that could respond. And so that's what we needed. We don't celebrate or we don't mourn the fact that more than 10,000 people didn't come and look at all the people we missed in that moment. But a lot of us as marketers and nonprofit leaders do that, and we get discouraged every year. I wish I had more donors. I wish I had more volunteers. I wish I had more board members. And so we mourn all of these people we think we are communicating to that aren't coming to help or coming to follow the call to action. When in reality, we really need to say, I was never going after 98% of those people. The 2% of the people were my people, and my language has to speak to them and call to them and get them to come and do something.
Don't we all need some Chris Fox in our life?
Oh my gosh.
To center us?
And I'm just thinking, nonprofits are the worst at stopping and celebrating. We are in the middle of these incredible mission moments, and we forget to kind of pause and take a moment and look around and say, wow, we are really infusing some goodness into the world. So thank you for that as well.
So Chris, one of the tools that I've seen you share is your social media content planning, your 30-day kind of challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's
I love
awesome.
that resource. I would love for our listeners to connect with you to get that resource. Could you just kind of share what that does and how it can kind of help immediately create some good for our community?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, after developing a clear message, what I find that most of my clients and most nonprofit communicators are struggling with is consistency. So you've got a clear message, or maybe you're working on a clear message, but you're also having trouble consistently creating that marketing content. And that's, for a lot of us, it's social media. For a lot of us, it's emails. For some of us, it's website content, it's videos, it's keynote presentations. And so what I really try to encourage people to do is nail down that clear language, and then put it into a 30-day framework for social media. For example, 30 days of posts on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever you're using, and get those 30 days written, and then start repeating that. The nature of marketing is that marketing should be an exercise in memorization. It should not be an exercise in coming up with some fresh new way to say it every day. The reality is 3 months, 6 months, 12 months after hearing your marketing message, your people, your audience, your donors, your clients, your volunteers should be able to repeat those messages. And if they are not able to repeat them, then you are confusing them with new words, new ways to say the same old thing. I think a lot of us struggle with a fear that people want something new to pay attention to. And that couldn't be further from the truth. What they really want is something they can memorize and latch onto and put deep inside them, right? Like they want to do good. So if we're out loving our neighbors by these certain ways, if we say that way over and over again, then people begin to internalize that mission. But if we try to find a new way to say it, and we do that in different ways, then people don't pick up on the pattern anymore, and they just get confused. And that's where it's real bad. They just check out. And so my 30 days of social media ideas are really designed to be built and filled in. So it gives you prompts on what to post about on this day. But then my encouragement is turn around and repeat that next month. If you gave a podcast recommendation in August, you should absolutely be expecting to give a podcast recommendation in September, because people are listening for consistency. They want to know that you're the same today as you are 2 months from now. And if you're constantly coming up with new marketing content, you're not only ruining that image of consistency and reliability and trust, you're actually confusing people because they're just getting overwhelmed by a bunch of noise.
I love it.
Mic drop moment. Wouldn't you say?
It's always the things that you really don't want to hear. Be consistent, be accountable, just show up. But a lot of it feels like that. It's be true to your messaging and just show up. Like you can't mess this up if you stick to that.
And I just think the 30 days of social media content, I've looked at that. Plus, the Story Brand Guide is so helpful for people that are out there saying, I don't know what my key messages are for my organization. I don't know what my elevator speech is. I mean, these two tools right here can help you walk through. I mean, it is, I call it Becky proof. It's idiot proof. I mean, all you have to do is fill in the blanks. And at the end, you have something that's concise again and completely on point. And we all don't have 10,000 messages. We don't have 10,000 missions. We have one mission, and we all have something that we're trying to move forward in several different ways. But you're exactly right. And, John and I always say we're marketers disguised as fundraisers. So our heart actually started with marketing. So this really has resonance, I think. And it works for people that aren't even in marketing, or if you're not a writer. I mean, would you say this is something that anybody could do?
Yeah, absolutely, because it goes back to that heavy lifting we talked about. It's just doing that work up front rather than trying to do it on your toes or on your feet, right? So if you're not in marketing in your nonprofit, if you are in development, or if you're the executive director or on the board, you are responsible for carrying forward some version of this message and this mission. Rather than think on your feet at that board meeting or at that chamber event or at this presentation, why not do that heavy lifting up front, answer those questions and fill in that framework. And then those are your sound bites that you carry forward. Sometimes they're the only thing you'll say and they'll be very effective. And sometimes they are the things that you sprinkle in and it will be very consistent. Either way, you're winning new awareness of people. You're winning new donors, you're winning new clients, you're winning new volunteers.
And we all win, John.
I love it.
Yep.
Okay, Chris, we love to ask all of our guests, what's one good thing? So one good thing that our listeners and all of us can implement today to kind of move the needle. What's your one good thing?
Okay. So my one good thing is really, it's a mantra that I have embraced for a very long time. I'm getting older now, but in my early 20s, I was a terrible perfectionist. I constantly worried about what could be or how something could be better. I would not release things into the world because they were not perfect. I would just bury myself in these expectations. And one day I came across this saying, progress over perfection. And it was powerful to me in the moment. But when I look back now, 15 years of having used this and said this, it is absolutely foundational. It means to me that when I have put a part of myself into something, when I have poured my heart out, when I have worked, and it needs to go out to do the good, right? I've got to deliver. I've got to put this out into the world for it to do any good. Me holding it back for the sake of perfection is actually robbing myself and everybody else of experiencing anything good that might come from this. I have to embrace progress and I have to put down perfection. And so it's about taking that next step. It's about pressing send. It's about getting back on that email list and writing after you haven't sent an email for 4 weeks, which I just did last week.
Guilty as charged.
Right. It's about taking that next step and surrendering the idea of it being perfect. Because if we're honest with ourselves, it's never going to be perfect. It's just it's a crutch. It's an excuse to hold off that fear of criticism or that fear of being seen or being vulnerable. And it's time to just put that down and walk forward.
And, I feel like it's a culture moment too. People don't want polish. I mean, the things you remember about people are that we're humans that are interacting with humans, and it's the being vulnerable that people connect with. So I love that. And I think we could all attest that we couldn't accomplish really anything if you just don't wake up and actually do the things,
Yep.
That's all you got left.
And as a more practical piece of advice there, what I tell my clients is that's why you don't wait for the high production value video cameras. That's why you don't start posting, or you don't wait to post on Instagram until you've got your brand script done and your polished message. You start today, because people care more about seeing you show up than they care about you being polished and perfect.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Love it.
And so our final question that we always ask all our guests is, why are you for good? And I think I could add about 40 reasons why Chris is for good, because you've clearly shown that today on our interview, and I've so enjoyed this. But how would you answer that question?
I think that I would answer, why am I for good, by saying, I think it's the only way any of us succeed is by sharing what we have that's good with other people around us, and then welcoming what they have that's good and learning from that and having that sustain us and hold us up. And so I love philanthropy. I love giving things away. Even today, I write in my email list to my subscribers, here's everything I do. I don't hold anything back. It's giving it away, because again, the reality is I can't possibly have all of you as clients. But what I can do is make my living and enjoy my life and help the people who I do take as clients. And then all 98% of those other people, I can give everything away that I do, so that they have more in their tool belt to accomplish what they do that's good. And I just think that's all around us every day. Everywhere we look, we can see philanthropy, we can see good. It's just about showing up, being ready to give our piece of it and take someone else's and share in it.
And what would happen to this world if we could all show up, give a piece of ourselves, and take a little piece back, right? I mean, it sounds so Pollyanna-ish, but I am drinking the Kool-Aid of which you are serving right now. So
The Fox Kool-Aid.
The Fox Kool-Aid. That was just so beautifully put. So we're just really grateful to have you on the show, have your expertise. And we really encourage anyone listening to get on our show notes and download this 30 days of social media content. I think we'll point point to your website and they can go in and sign up on your email list. And let me just put a little plug in for your email list. I got the email this morning and it was outstanding. Practical, short. It was something I could scan. Thank you very much.
It's like we all subscribe and we all forward it to each other. It's like we are getting this. Like, so then you've got 6 in your inbox. So
Right.
we're fans.
Yes, and clearly we're creating more work for ourselves. So it's just been a delight to visit with you today, and really encourage people to go to chrisfox.co, which is your website, and learn a little bit more about your brand, and just get some more goodness. Some of that.
Is there anywhere else where people should connect with you? I know you're on all the platforms, but where do you like to hang out?
I really love my Instagram. That's where I hang out the most. Yeah. I post across all of them because I'm a good marketer, but I hang out at Instagram.
Awesome. Go see Chris on Instagram.
And his little sub Instagram of little foxes, which are his children. I did love that. I saw that and it was amazing. Truly, how humanizing is that? It's wonderful. We should play in the space that we live and work in that space too. Good for you. Well, it was a delight to meet you, Chris. Thank you so much for giving your time to us and our community.
It was great talking.
Thank you guys so much for the good work you do and encouraging nonprofits and pushing forward that progress on good design and good marketing and philanthropy. I love it.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye, Chris.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.